All right, so time to kick things off into the legs and back portion, and as I've shown with my prior modifications, the legs and back version is going to be no different. So P90X, working through that, I really enjoyed the series, and I've had the DVDs for a while. I've actually gone through a decent bit of the series. I didn't really do any of the Kenpo stuff, but at the same time, a lot of that training, I really like the cadence, I really like the tempo and speed. So starting off with a reverse lunge, and I'm actually into a second phase of this portion just because I did recently add this, and I'm now actually into about my 4th week, so I'm changing things up and I'm adding components rather than just reverse lunges. I'm actually now having a overhead portion where I'm raising my arms overhead to then make sure that I'm getting some stability there, just because I tend to lack stability in the overhead position when I'm doing overhead pressing, where I start to kind of pop my chest out, and that creates issues with my lower back. From there, moving into a bent over leg extension, so basically just using a ball to kind of support myself and then doing leg extension. So my hip being the problematic piece that it is, doing some spinal loading with a squat, or even an issue with a leg press where I'm getting into a little bit more of like this neural flossing piece. That's, it's not even the flossing thing that is hurtful, it's just that motion tends to really aggravate my hip. I'm not exactly sure if it's an FAI issue or what it is, but at the same time, that's something where that exercise has actually helped quite a bit with a little bit more of like a flossing technique, but also not really overloading anything. And then from there, moving into the last portion, which is basically using a TRX type strap. It's actually called the Jungle Gym. And what I'm doing with that basically is just doing a wide rear fly, but I'm doing it more body weight supported. So that is something where it's getting more scapular stability, and it's just really helping be supportive when it comes to my posterior chain as well, to be able to brace properly as I'm going through a motion. So something where I'm doing like a bent over version of this, it's easy to kind of get into this little bit of a momentum swing. So reducing that down and having a more of a benefit to where I'm actually maintaining better core bracing and not really getting into that issue of overloading the muscle with dumbbells and then getting into more ego lifting. And that's just something that as I've gotten older, I didn't really understand that when I was younger. Now that I'm older, I definitely am understanding that quite a bit. So I will basically be doing those 3 exercises, reverse lunges, and then moving into the ball supported leg extensions, and then finishing up with the TRX wide rear flies, essentially doing that for 4 sets. And then basically moving into more of like a side lunge. So with side lunges, this is not an exercise that I really enjoy. This is something that when it comes to patterning, I find that a lot of patterning happens where we're going forward and backwards, and we're not really doing a lot of lateral motion. You don't normally walk sideways. So that's something where I'm trying to really incorporate that a little bit. It's not a comfortable movement for me. It doesn't cause pain, it's just not comfortable because I'm not used to it. So I started with that, basically going from one side to the other side. So I don't just do a certain number of reps on one side and then a certain number of reps on the other. I kind of alternate, so where I'll go right and then left and so on. And I really like that just because it requires me to, again, maintain some core upright support when it comes to just proper bracing here, and I'm not doing any sort of loading. So that's something where I'm just basically having to remind myself to keep my core tight, which is a good just memory type of piece to make sure that I'm using that as I progress in the hope to get back to squatting. And from there, doing a single-legged deadlift essentially with my arms overhead. This is something that requires a lot of balance, a lot of support. Again, trying to increase the difficulty with movements as I'm going along. When I started, I wasn't doing the arms raised motion overhead to where I'm essentially tilting forward, but at the same time, now that I'm into this a little bit, that's the next phase, is basically raising the arms up overhead. And then I actually will be doing some neutral grip shrugs. This is something that I just really like to be able to kind of go through this up and down, this vertical motion with my scapula, to try to be able to just raise this up and down. I don't normally shrug a lot, so that's something where, again, just trying to get into a different movement pattern, because I'm not really doing any sort of deadlifting at all anymore. So that's something where I'm trying to incorporate that a little bit further. So looking at side lunges, the single-legged deadlift, then the neutral grip shrugs, and then repeating that with the side lunges again, single leg deadlift, neutral grip shrugs, and then actually moving into a ball glute bridge. So with this is an exercise where, again, it's going to require me to maintain balance because I'm using a ball on my back and then just driving my hips up. I tend to not get the best extension when I'm coming upright. I tend to kind of be back here and tilt it forward a little bit, which just keeps a lot of that pressure on my lower back. So then moving from there, into the calf raise. So just no weight calf raises, obviously still not loading my spine, so doing some calf raises. And then from that piece, moving into the neutral grip shrugs again. So as this kind of gets confusing, this is where it tends to alter a good bit when it comes to that P90X legs and back video. So that's where I'm kind of, this video kind of loses its course just a little bit to where it's not 3 exercises, 3 exercises, 3 exercises, and then moving to the next grouping and then doing 3 exercises, 3 exercises, and so on. So moving into another set after those calf raises, essentially into neutral grip shrugs, then ball glute bridge, then another set of calf raises, and then neutral grip shrugs. And then moving into my own additions, essentially, which would be hanging leg raises, then left and right twists, just because, again, another motion that we don't normally do. Used to do it a lot when it comes to exercising, 10, 20 years ago, just because that was a motion that was a little bit more commonplace in old exercise routines. Now it's not so much, and we don't really do a lot of this transverse rotation, which I actually think is helpful for my spine and helping just make sure that I'm maintaining a little bit of just fluidity and being able to be loose. And then I'm doing actually more of like a pelvic rock, so forward and back, so anterior and posterior pelvic tilt, and then some side to side shifting, and then basically doing a little around the world with the hips. So basically just trying to draw a nice big circle in one direction and then in the other direction. So hanging leg raise, and then doing the left and right twist, and then the hip motion, and then basically kind of repeating that. So I'm only doing 3 of the, as I was mentioning with the hips, front and back is during set 1, side to side is during set 2, and then the circular rotation is during set 3. So, in further complications, let's get this one started.
All right, so first half is essentially done. I got to get the setup for the Ninja Grip shrugs, and sorry for the cotton mouth and the lighting, but at the same time moving into the next pairing, so I'm going to try to get the camera here adjusted a little bit.